Greetings, friends. Welcome to my new calculus channel. My name is John Gabriel, and today I'm going to start a new series which will be based on my reflections on mathematics and how I think in a major way. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, so I'm going to start off with, in my first video called Musings 1, obviously the first part in the series. And I'm going to talk about something I often heard my mother tell me. My mother was Greek, and she would say to me, "Ya pio logo." And word for word, translated, that means for what reason. Okay, and normally you won't hear that as many times in other languages as you'll hear it in Greek. So the Greeks are obsessed with reason. Their curiosity is insatiable. And of course, the way they communicate it gives you a clue into why they had such great thought, such great theory, and why they produced so many things as they did. Now, mathematics, as we know, is not a product of human thought. Sound mathematics it is. I'm not talking about the drivel of modern mathematics. And of course, they were the first to realize the perfect concepts of mathematics, which are also known as noumena. And of course, noumenon is a Kantian expression, which means a concept independent of the human mind. Now, such concepts are perfect concepts because they can be realized by any sentient being, not just a human. So I'm not going to dwell on that. But anyway, let's go back to for what reason and how, how this may have led to Platonic philosophy. Not may have led, it did lead to Platonic philosophy, and how mathematics, as we know it today, in Euclid's Elements at least, was realized. So the word logos, and that in modern Greek we don't have all the other diacritic marks and what have you. We just have a tone over the syllable that's accented. Logos means word, and in ancient Greek at least. But the modern word that is most commonly used today is lexi. Okay, as of course you probably heard of lexicon, and lexi means word. So now, in ancient times, in the time of Euclid, analogia meant ratio. Okay, but logos also means ratio. Now, in modern Greek, you hardly find anybody referring to ratio by analogia or logos, as it was in the Book of Elements. So, for example, in Book 5 and Definition 3, we see the first word here, logos, okay? And it doesn't say rito. In Greek, rito means something that is spoken or vocable, something that is said, right? So in ancient Greek, the word rito was not used. So this is a modern thing. And of course, in definition 3, we see it says, logos esti dio meiethon homogenon, ikata pilikotita pia siesis. Okay, so that's, for example, this thing here, meiethon homogenon, means magnitudes homogeneous. So homogeneous appears after the noun, which is magnitudes. So it says literally that a ratio is two magnitudes which are homogeneous, With respect to, now this word here is rendered by many dictionaries as quotient, but that's not what it meant. And I'll explain in a minute what we refer to when we look at this. Pilikotita in this case here means a partitioning or a division of some part, okay? It doesn't mean quotient per se. Otherwise, this definition here would be circular. So it means it is a relationship. It has a relationship with its parts, okay? So that's what a ratio is, literally. If you look at my LinkedIn article, which I'll provide a link to in the details section, this here explains everything you need to know about ratios. And it's written, the first part is written in Greek and the second part in English. It's not very long, and I highly recommend that you study that, because you cannot understand number without understanding what is a ratio, because that's where it all started. Okay. Excuse me. It all started with ratio. Now, bear in mind, I have never been to Greek school, so my Greek is not as good as, for example, somebody who has studied in Greece, and I'm self-taught where the Greek language is concerned. So this is how we got the idea of ratio and the beginnings of the road to number. Okay. Now, what about incommensurables? Now, in book 10, we see the word allogi, which, by the way, sounds very similar to the word for horse, which is allogos. Okay. So Greek is a very polymorphic language. Certain words can take on different meanings, even in the same intonation, in different contexts. Okay, so in that sense, in Euclid's Elements, it means incommensurable magnitudes, not numbers, because there is no such thing as an incommensurable number. That would go contrary to the meaning of number, which means a measure. So if it has no measure, how can it be a number, right? Now, in modern Greece, in Greece today, they don't refer to it as allogi anymore. They refer to it as ariti, arithmi. Okay, that means irrational numbers, which is garbage, because there is no such thing as an irrational number. Now, arito is the opposite of spoken or vocable. It means something which cannot be spoken. In other words, it doesn't have a name, right? So if you go and you look at my definition of number here, that's exactly how number is defined. It is the name given to a measure that describes a magnitude, right? So book 10 is called Incommensurable Magnitudes, not incommensurable numbers, because there is no such thing as an incommensurable number. It is an oxymoron, okay? It doesn't go together. Those two words are garbage when spoken together. So I just wanted to give you a little idea of how language and the way it is used. Of course, you obviously know these things, but in this particular case, this influenced everything you know in mathematics with respect to geometry and number and calculus and everything you got from the ancient Greeks. Okay. So they were remarkable folk. And, you know, when I look at Sir Thomas Heath's, translation, so when I look at this first one here, it says those magnitudes measured by the same measure, etc. It's a reasonable translation, but it's not the best. And of course, if we go to book 5 and we look at the definition of ratio, we see that he says a ratio is a certain type of condition with respect to size of two magnitudes of the same kind. So it's not, strictly speaking, a right translation, because it doesn't mention pilikotita. Okay, and pilikotita means a partitioning or parts of a whole or some. In this case, the whole is the ratio that's being described. So it's not a whole in a numeric sense, but a whole concept. And it's the ratio that is being described, because as you see on the left here, That's what it says. Logos esti Dio megethon homogenon ikata pilikotita pia siesis. Okay? So, Thomas Heath did a pretty good job, but obviously he wasn't a native Greek, and he didn't understand these things as well as somebody who, for example, grew up speaking Greek from a young child. The first words I ever heard were Greek, naturally, because my mother was Greek. Now, so I do have an advantage over others who haven't learned Greek at all, because I know how, I know all the nuances and the rudiments of the language. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little presentation and given you just a little insight into the way I think, and the way probably my ancestors thought, because I don't know that this is scientifically proven yet, or that this is factual, but there might be something to DNA memory, or how we inherit certain things from our ancestors, the way we think, the way we do things. So very well, I hope you've enjoyed this. This is a new calculus channel. My name is John Gabriel. Till next time, goodbye, folks.